Mary turned 74 in the spring, and with the blooming of her favorite lilacs came something else, something less welcome, a fatigue she couldn't quite shake, a little weight loss she didn't try for, and a cough that just wouldn't go away. But like many older folks, she didn't think much of it. Just getting older, she told herself. Maybe I need to drink more water. Probably allergies, she didn't know. That sometimes when the body whispers, it's asking you to pay attention before it has to shout. Aging isn't quiet. It comes with clicks in the knees, a twinge in the lower back, a groan every time you get out of bed. So when something new starts, like a bit of bloating, a lump, a strange bruise, it often gets lost in the background noise of everyday discomfort. Mary once told her friend Evelyn, "If I saw a doctor every time something ached, I'd have to build a clinic in my backyard." They laughed, but deep down, both of them knew, not every ache should be ignored. The older you get, the more pain you learn to carry, a sore hip here, a stiff shoulder there. You learn to live with it, you adapt, you get on with your day. But that very strength, the gift of endurance, can become a danger, because it teaches you to tolerate what maybe you shouldn't. A friend of Mary's once had stomach pain for 3 months before seeing anyone about it. Turned out it wasn't just something she ate, it was stage 2 colon cancer, caught just in time. Older adults often grew up in a time when you only saw the doctor if your leg was falling off or you couldn't breathe. Appointments cost money, waiting rooms were cold, and nobody wanted to feel like they were bothering someone. Mary was the same. She once ignored a lump on her collarbone for weeks, until her daughter noticed and made the call herself. It wasn't cancer, thankfully, but it could have been. That's the thing about cancer. It rarely screams at first. It whispers. We blame everything on aging. My energy's low because I'm old. I pee more because that's what happens. After 70, this mole looks weird, but I've had it forever. But the truth is, cancer doesn't care how old you are, and many early signs look like common aging symptoms: fatigue, weight change, bathroom troubles. That's how it hides, in plain sight, wrapped in excuses. Mary admitted something one quiet evening over tea. "I think part of me didn't want to know," she said. "As long as no one says the word out loud, it isn't real." That's a real fear, the fear of diagnosis, the fear that a quiet life might suddenly be filled with hospitals, scans, treatments. But you know what's worse than fear? Regret. The kind of regret that comes when something that could have been treated wasn't. Mary had lost 3 friends in her 70s. None of them passed suddenly. All of them had warning signs. A cough that wouldn't leave. A strange pain. Blood in the toilet, just once or twice. They thought it was nothing. They thought it would go away. And by the time they knew, it was too late. That's the cruelty of cancer. It gives you a chance to catch it early, but only if you're paying attention. Mary started listening differently, not just to her music or to the birds outside the window, but to her body. She kept a small notebook by her bed, jotted down things like, "Felt more tired than usual today," "Skipped dinner again, not hungry." That cough is still there. It wasn't obsessive, it wasn't fear-driven, it was awareness, and awareness at her age is power. Narrator. This series isn't about panic. It's not here to scare you or send you rushing to Google every ache and itch. It's here to gently remind you. You know your body better than anyone. You've lived in it for decades. And if something doesn't feel right, don't dismiss it. Don't wait. Don't excuse it as just old age. Listen to it. Then speak up. Mary made a promise to herself. If something lingers, I'll call. If something changes, I'll ask. If something feels wrong, I'll believe myself. It's a promise worth making, not just for yourself, but for your children, your grandchildren, the friends who still want to drink tea with you in the afternoon sun. In the chapters ahead, we'll talk about 7 cancer signs that older folks often overlook, signs that hide under the surface, that wear disguises, that whisper before they shout. Mary will walk us through each one, with stories, with warmth, with wisdom, because if there's one thing age gives you, it's the courage to listen, and the wisdom to act. In the next part, we'll begin with one of the quietest signs of all, unexplained weight loss, and why Mary's loose-fitting pants may have told her something before anyone else did. Mary had always been proud of her figure, not in a vain way, but in the quiet, self-assured way of a woman who knew what size skirt she wore for the last 30 years. She never dieted, never counted calories. She cooked hearty food, baked when she was happy, ate toast when she was sad. So when her favorite cardigan started feeling loose around the shoulders, she noticed. She smiled at first. Well, look at that. Maybe I've finally shaken off those holiday pounds from 1997. But when the fourth notch on her belt appeared, she paused. Over 3 months, Mary lost nearly 12 pounds. No new diet, no illness, no change in routine, just a slow fade. Her wrists looked thinner. Her cheeks lost their softness. Friends complimented her. "You look great, Mary." "I wish I could drop a few like that." And for a little while, she let herself believe it was just a lucky break. But the truth? Her body was sending a message. Not all weight loss is good news, especially after 65. When the body starts shedding pounds on its own without trying, it can be a sign. Of what? Well, that's the tricky part. It could be stress. It could be depression. It could be something with the thyroid. Or it could be cancer. Pancreatic, stomach, colon, lung, and even some blood cancers often start this way, quietly, without pain, just a gradual decline in weight. One morning, Mary stood in front of the mirror. Really stood. She saw it. The way her collarbone jutted. The way her skin looked a little too loose around her arms. The way her legs seemed smaller than she remembered. She touched her side, as if to confirm what her eyes saw, and she said, almost whispering, "Where did you go?" That's the trap, isn't it? But I feel fine. Mary still had energy. She still walked to the market. She still read books and watered the plants. No pain, no fever, no bruises. But weight loss doesn't always come with a drum roll. It comes quietly, through forgotten meals, loss of appetite, a subtle shift in how full you feel, maybe a change in how food tastes. The body is changing, but not always in a way you can feel. Mary had a pair of old slacks she hadn't worn since her grandson's graduation. She pulled them on one morning just for fun. They slipped on with no resistance. And that's when she didn't smile. Because those pants used to hug her hips. Now they draped, loose in places they shouldn't be. She folded them quietly and made tea with shaking hands. It took her another 2 weeks to call the doctor, not because she didn't care, but because part of her still wanted it to be nothing. But one afternoon, while cleaning out the pantry, she found a half-full jar of peanut butter, one she hadn't touched in months. And she realized she hadn't wanted it. She hadn't wanted anything, really. That was enough. She called. Chikune. Thika. Doctor was kind. He asked about her eating habits, her energy, her stress levels. He weighed her, reviewed her records, then said, "Let's run a few tests, just to rule things out." He didn't scare her. He didn't jump to conclusions. But he listened, and that was more than enough. The days waiting for results were long. Mary drank more water, read more books, talked to Evelyn every afternoon, as if to keep the silence at bay. She didn't tell her kids, not yet. She didn't want them to worry. But inside she whispered, "Let it be nothing. But if it's something, thank you for catching it now." The tests came back, no cancer, but her thyroid was underactive. And her doctor spotted something else, a small polyp on her colon, early stage. It was removed easily, painlessly, caught only because she paid attention, because her pants no longer fit, because she didn't wait. Mary now keeps a scale by her bedroom door, not to obsess, not to chase a number, but to track her truth. Once a month she writes it down. If it dips without reason, she calls. Her advice? Weight loss might feel like a gift at this age, but if you didn't ask for it, it might be a message instead. So watch your clothes. Notice your appetite. Listen when your body lets go of things without explanation, because sometimes what seems like a blessing is a warning in disguise. In Part 3, we'll talk about a tiredness that doesn't go away, one that no nap can fix, persistent fatigue, what it can mean, and how Mary learned that rest isn't always the answer. Mary used to love mornings. She'd rise with the sun, stretch in the doorway, and hum her way to the kettle. But lately, the mornings didn't come so easily. Her bones weren't just stiff, they were heavy, the kind of heavy that made her sit down while brushing her teeth. That made her skip the newspaper. That made toast feel like a task too big to finish. It's just getting older, she thought. But the tired didn't go away. Not after tea, not after a nap, not even after a good night's sleep. There's the kind of tired that comes after gardening. And then there's the tired that comes from nowhere. Mary began waking up tired. She started saying no to little things, walks, phone calls, puzzles. Not today, she'd say. I'm just a bit drained. But the days stretched on, and the feeling didn't leave. That's when she realized this wasn't just tired. This was something else. Mary tried everything, warm milk at night, going to bed earlier, cutting out caffeine. She even tried a power nap every afternoon, 20 minutes in the recliner, Earl the cat curled up beside her. Nothing helped. Her energy was gone, like someone had stolen it quietly in the middle of the night. And in its place was a fog. Not enough to panic, but enough to slow her down, day by day. Fatigue doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just makes you forget who you used to be. Mary stopped calling Evelyn. She skipped her Tuesday crossword. She began saying, maybe, next week to the library group, and eventually they stopped asking. She didn't notice how far she'd pulled back until she looked around one day and realized the world had kept moving, and she had quietly stepped off. Most people think fatigue is normal after a certain age, and yes, aging does slow you down. But it shouldn't steal your days. It shouldn't make walking to the mailbox feel like climbing a hill. It shouldn't make your arms ache after folding a towel. It shouldn't make you forget how to feel alive. Persistent fatigue, when it lingers for weeks or months and has no obvious reason, can be an early sign of cancer, especially blood. Cancers like leukemia or lymphoma, or colon cancer, or lung cancer, even without a cough. Eventually, Mary went in for a regular checkup. She almost didn't mention the fatigue, but as the doctor asked, "How have you been feeling?" she said, "Like I'm dragging myself through wet cement." The doctor paused. "That's not aging, Mary," he said. "That's a symptom." Blood work followed. A referral to a specialist, a scan. She was nervous, but she was also relieved because someone was finally paying attention. It wasn't cancer, but it was anemia, caused by slow internal bleeding, likely from a small lesion in her colon. Easily treated, but left unchecked, could have turned into something worse. The fatigue wasn't just in her head. It was her body's early warning system, and it had been whispering for weeks. With iron supplements, a small outpatient procedure, and a little more protein in her meals, Mary began to feel like herself again. The tea tasted better. The toast was worth toasting. The mornings came, a little brighter. She walked to the market, started her crosswords again, and told Evelyn, "Don't let me skip book club again unless I'm dead. And even then, text me just in case." Mary now sees fatigue differently, not as a sign of weakness, not as something to hide, but as a signal, one worth listening to. If you're older and tired, really tired, and it doesn't go away with rest or change, talk to someone. Don't wait for it to get worse. Don't let the days keep slipping by like fog. You deserve better than that. Mary made herself a checklist. Maybe it'll help you too. Has it lasted more than 2 weeks? Is it getting worse? Is sleep no longer refreshing? Are you losing interest in things you used to love? Are you more pale, dizzy, or breathless than before? If you answer yes to 2 or more, call. It's not dramatic. It's responsible. Mary once feared she'd never feel like herself again, but she did, slowly, steadily, because she listened, and she acted. Now when she wakes up, she says, "Let's see what today wants from me." And sometimes the answer is simple. Live it. In Part 4, we'll look at something that shows up on the outside. Skin changes, moles, spots, textures, the kinds of things older adults dismiss as just age spots, but could be something more. Mary had always had freckles. They danced across her shoulders and arms like summer constellations. As she got older, the freckles faded, and age spots took their place. She called them her coffee stains from life, and she didn't mind them until one of them changed. Just a little, just enough. And that little change almost went unnoticed. It was Evelyn who first noticed it. They were folding laundry together when she said, "Mary, has that spot on your shoulder always been so dark?" Mary shrugged. "It's just one of my old lady freckles. I've had it forever." Evelyn didn't push, but that night, Mary stood in front of the mirror, and for the first time, she really looked at it. The spot was the size of a pencil eraser, almost perfectly round, but not quite, darker than she remembered, with a slightly jagged edge. And it had an odd shine to it, like it didn't belong to her skin. She didn't feel pain, it didn't itch, but something about it felt wrong. Still, she closed the bathroom light and whispered to herself, "It's probably nothing." Skin. Cancer rarely hurts in the beginning. It doesn't throb. It doesn't make you cough. It just shows up. Sometimes it's a mole you've had forever that changes. Sometimes it's a brand new dot that appears out of nowhere. Most of us chalk it up to aging, sun damage, time, and in many cases that's true. But when something changes shape, color, size, or feel, it's worth checking. Mary's doctor later taught her something she never forgot. The ABCDEs of melanoma. A. Asymmetry. One half doesn't match the other. B. Border irregular, notched or blurred. C. Color. Multiple shades of brown, black, or red. D. Diameter. Larger than 6 millimeters. About the size of a pencil eraser. Evolving. Any change over time, size, shape, color, itchiness, bleeding. Mary laughed and said, "Why does cancer need the whole alphabet?" But she remembered every letter. Her neighbor, George, always wore short sleeves, never sunscreen, had a mole on his neck. He said it had been there for years. When it started to bleed, he said it was just irritated from shaving. When it got bigger, he covered it with a bandage and moved on. By the time he went in, it had already spread, and even though he fought hard, George didn't make it through the year. Mary finally scheduled an appointment. The dermatologist looked at her shoulder, then pulled out a special lens. "It's probably benign," she said, "but let's do a biopsy to be sure." It was a small pinch, a quick dressing, and a week of waiting. Mary busied herself with puzzles and lemon cake, and tried not to worry. It was precancerous, not yet dangerous, but it could have become melanoma if left alone. They removed it cleanly, no chemo, no drama, just a lesson that the body sometimes shows you before it tells you. Mary began doing monthly skin checkups. She stood in front of the mirror, checked her arms, legs, back with a handheld mirror, and used her phone's camera for hard-to-see places. She called it mapping the territory, and she began to notice patterns. She could tell if something was new or changing, and that awareness gave her peace. Some people are embarrassed to talk about their skin. They think it's vain or unnecessary. But Mary told her book club, her daughter, even her grandson, "If you see something weird on me, tell me. I won't be mad. I'll be grateful. Because when you ignore what you can see, you risk what you can't." Mary now says this: "Your skin is the only outfit you wear every day for your whole life. Pay attention to it. Look for new moles, changes in color or shape, spots that itch, bleed, or crust. Anything that feels different, even if it looks small. It's not being dramatic, it's being wise. Because that little freckle on your shoulder, it might just want your attention, and maybe, just maybe, your life depends on it." In Part 5, we'll talk about a sign that often gets dismissed as just a cold, a cough or hoarseness that won't go away, and how Mary learned to listen, not just to her lungs, but to her voice. Mary had always had a clear, calm voice, the kind of voice that could read bedtime stories, give advice over the phone, or tell off the neighborhood cat for stealing tuna. But one winter, something changed. Her voice grew raspy. Her throat felt tight in the mornings, and a dry little cough, one that started during a dusty walk, never really went away. "It's just the cold weather," she thought. "Probably some old dust in the house." But March passed, then April, then May, and the cough was still there, small, dry, but steady, like a metronome she couldn't turn off. At first, it was only in the mornings. She'd cough a little while making tea, clear her throat while reading the paper, soothe it with honey. Her voice, rougher, softer, not painful, but not quite hers anymore. Evelyn said, "You sound like an old blues singer, Mary," they laughed. But deep down, Mary wondered why the tickle wasn't leaving. Most people think of coughs as a cold or flu symptom, and often they are. But a cough that lingers beyond 8 weeks, especially in a non-smoker, especially in the elderly, can be something more: lung cancer, esophageal cancer, laryngeal, voice box cancer, or even thyroid problems pressing on the throat, especially if it comes with other signs: hoarseness, difficulty swallowing a lump in the throat, blood and phlegm. Mary had none of those, just a little cough, and that made it even easier to ignore. One Sunday, during a phone call with her granddaughter, Mary had to stop talking. She couldn't project her voice. "Grandma, are you okay?" the little voice on the other end asked. Mary nodded, then realized the child couldn't see her. Her voice had gone too soft to comfort. That's when she knew it wasn't just dry air. It was her body trying to get her attention. Mary's primary doctor referred her to an ENT, a throat and voice specialist. They slid a tiny camera down her nose into the back of her throat, and there it was, a small growth on her left vocal cord. Benign, but close to precancerous, likely caused by years of acid reflux she never treated, made worse by dry indoor, heating, and age. A little longer, and it might have turned worse. Most people think cancer must come with pain, but some of the most serious signs come quietly. A small cough, a breath shorter than usual, a scratchiness that doesn't belong. Our bodies speak in patterns, and when a cough refuses to go, even if it's not loud, even if it's not scary, it's still speaking. We just need to listen. They removed the growth safely. Mary did some vocal rest. She sipped warm water. She avoided acidic foods, and slowly her voice returned. Not exactly as it was before, a bit softer, a little huskier, but unmistakably hers. The cough? Gone, like it had finally finished saying what it needed to say. Mary started noticing how many people around her were coughing, clearing their throats, or growing hoarse and brushing it off. "It's just age. Must be pollen. My throat's always been like this." But she learned better. Now, she tells her friends, if your cough's been there longer than a month and it's not going away, ask someone about it, because ignoring it might cost you your voice or more. Here's what Mary now watches: a cough lasting longer than 3 to 4 weeks. Any hoarseness that doesn't improve voice changes not related to a cold trouble swallowing. Feeling like something's stuck in the throat, pain or pressure when speaking or breathing. If you have any of these, don't wait. Don't tell yourself it's nothing. Let a doctor decide that. Mary now reads to her neighbor's grandchildren every Thursday. She sings softly while watering the plants. She tells Earl the cat bedtime stories. She records voice notes to her future self, because when she almost lost her voice, she realized just how much she'd miss it. "My voice is mine," she says, "and I intend to use it while I still can." Mary's advice is simple. If something about your throat, your breath, your voice feels off and stays that way, pay attention. A cough is never just a cough if it won't go away. You don't have to wait until you're out of breath to ask for help. Sometimes a whisper is a warning, and sometimes your own voice is trying to save your life. In Part 6, we'll explore something many seniors live with: pain that doesn't go away. Not just arthritis, not just wear and tear, but pain that lingers in ways it shouldn't, and what it may be trying to say. Mary knew pain. She knew it from years of lifting children, carrying groceries, walking up too many stairs. Her knees ached in the rain. Her back groaned if she gardened too long. Her hands didn't like the cold anymore, but she also knew the rhythm of her pain, where it lived, what time it visited, what made it worse, and what made it better. That's why when a new pain came, one that didn't fit the pattern, she noticed. It started as a stitch, just below the ribs on the right side. Mary thought it was gas, or maybe she'd slept funny. But the next day, it was still there, and the next, not sharp, not unbearable, just steady, quiet, always there. And it didn't change when she moved or when she rested. This isn't one of my usual pains, she thought. There's a difference between familiar pain and new pain. Familiar pain, like arthritis, is usually symmetrical. It comes and goes. It responds to heat, cold, movement. New pain, especially when persistent, doesn't follow the rules. It can show up in odd places: a dull ache in the lower back, a sharp twinge in the pelvis, a sore spot under the ribs. And it doesn't listen to ibuprofen or heating pads. It just stays. Older adults learn to live with discomfort. It's just age. I slept on it wrong. I've had worse. But that's the problem. When you expect to hurt, you stop questioning why you hurt. And that's when dangerous pain hides in plain sight. Certain cancers present as chronic pain first: bone cancer, pain that worsens at night, or with activity liver cancer, dull aches under the ribs, pancreatic cancer, back or abdominal pain, ovarian or colon cancer, pelvic discomfort or bloating brain tumors, persistent headaches, vision changes. These aren't sharp, dramatic pains. They're nagging, constant, and they often show up before other symptoms do. After 3 weeks, the ache in Mary's side was still there. It hadn't worsened, but it hadn't left. She tried warm compresses, deep breathing, stretches. Still there. So she told her doctor. He asked, "Does it hurt more after you eat?" It did. "Does it wake you at night?" Sometimes. That was enough to send her for imaging. The scan revealed a small growth on her liver. Not cancerous, not yet. A benign tumor called a hepatic adenoma, common in older women, but one that needs watching. If ignored, it could have turned worse. But caught early, it was harmless. Removed in a short procedure, recovery in under a week. Mary made herself a rule after that. If pain stays more than 2 weeks and I don't know why, it's not mine yet. And I'm not claiming it until a doctor tells me to, because not all pain is just wear and tear. Some of it is a signal. Mary learned to pay attention to pain at rest, not just when moving, pain that wakes her up, pain that doesn't respond to usual remedies, pain that's new and unexplained, especially if it's paired with other symptoms: fatigue, weight loss, fever, nausea, blood in urine or stool. All of these can be whispers from something deeper. Mary started telling her friends, "You wouldn't let your car make a strange noise for weeks without checking it. Why do that to your body?" Pain is not weakness. Pain is information. Doctors are trained to sort the harmless from the serious. Let them. If you feel something and it stays, don't dismiss it. Don't wait for it to get worse. Don't wait until it stops you from doing what you love. Mary caught her problem early. She didn't wait for the pain to speak louder. And now, when she feels a twinge or tug that doesn't make sense, she listens and she asks, because sometimes the body only whispers once. In Part 7, we'll talk about something many seniors feel too shy to mention: changes in bathroom habits, what your bowels and bladder might be trying to tell you, and why ignoring the toilet can be more dangerous than we think. Mary never liked talking about bathroom issues. That was private business, something you didn't bring up at lunch or mention on the phone. But as she aged, the bathroom started giving her messages, subtle ones, strange ones she almost ignored, until she realized the toilet might be trying to save her life. Mary had always been regular, same time every morning like clockwork. She joked, "If I skip the bathroom, check my pulse." But one month, things changed. Sometimes she'd go 3 days without a bowel movement. Other times, it was 3 times in one day. The stools looked different, longer, thinner, sometimes pale, sometimes with streaks she didn't want to examine. She told herself it was fiber, or maybe she was dehydrated, but deep down, she knew. Bathroom habits are like handwriting. Everyone's a little different, but you know your own, and when it changes suddenly, without a reason, it can be a red flag. Things to watch for: thin or pencil-like stools, blood in the stool dark, tar-like stools, changes in frequency, feeling like you didn't fully go, new constipation or diarrhea. Mary had 2 of those, and she almost told no one. Many older adults don't tell their doctor about bathroom changes. Why? Embarrassment fear, thinking it's just old age, assuming it's hemorrhoids, but colorectal cancer is one of the most treatable cancers if caught early, and one of the most deadly if ignored. All it asks of you is to look before you flush. One afternoon, Mary saw something she couldn't ignore. A streak of bright red in the water. It's probably a fissure, she thought. Maybe I pushed too hard. But it happened again, and that was enough. She called her doctor and scheduled a colonoscopy, something she'd been putting off for over 10 years. Mary dreaded it, the prep, the fasting, the indignity of it, all. But she reminded herself, better a day of discomfort than a month of regret. The procedure was quick. She was asleep, and when she woke up, they'd found a polyp, not cancer, but a precancerous growth, removed on the spot. No pain, no hospital stay, just a quiet save. It's not just the bowels that send warnings, Mary also noticed. Getting up twice a night to pee, a weak stream, a sudden urgency that made her nervous on long walks. Sometimes a burning sensation. She thought it was a UTI, but the tests were clean. Turned out it was postmenopausal bladder thinning. Common, but also something that should be monitored. For men, these same signs can indicate prostate issues, or worse. Bathroom changes that should never be ignored. Any blood in stool, or urine sudden, unexplained changes in frequency, pain or burning without infection, incontinence or pressure, unusual smells or color changes. And if you're over 60, colonoscopies aren't optional. They're protection. Mary says, you wouldn't ignore a leaking roof. Why ignore a leaking body? Mary made a decision. She stopped whispering about these things. She told her daughter, we talk about bowel movements now. Get used to it. She told Evelyn, if your bathroom's been weird lately, don't lie to me. She told her book club, let's all get scoped. We'll make a day of it. And they did. 7 women, 1 van, 1 very surprised gastroenterologist. Mary now keeps a quiet log in her bathroom drawer. Just little notes, dates, any changes. It's not obsessive, it's attentive. Because if cancer tries to sneak in, it'll have to get past her first. Don't be embarrassed. Your bathroom habits are not shameful. They're signals. They tell you what your blood won't, what your bones can't. Mary says, check the toilet. Check your calendar. If something's off, say it out loud. It might feel awkward for a minute, but silence lasts a lot longer when it's too late. In Part 8, we'll explore a sign that sneaks into the skin, the bones, and even the blood, unusual bruising or bleeding, and why Mary's smallest bruise told the biggest story. Mary bumped her shin on the coffee table. Not hard, not enough to cry out, just a tap, something she'd done 100 times. But the bruise that came, dark, deep, and wide. It bloomed like an oil spill across her leg, and it stayed. For 3 weeks. That was the first time she noticed her body was bruising differently. It started happening more often. A gentle knock from the cupboard door, a brush against the chair arm, even pressing too hard on her arm during blood pressure checks, and suddenly bruises, not tiny purple dots, big ones, black and blue, sometimes yellow. Her skin was changing, but what was worse, so was what lay beneath it. As we age, our skin thins, our blood vessels become more fragile. Some bruising is expected. But excessive bruising, or bruises without explanation, that's not normal. And neither is bleeding from unusual places, bleeding gums without dental work. Nosebleeds that won't stop blood in urine or stool. Prolonged bleeding from a small cut, unusual vaginal bleeding after menopause. These can be signs of blood cancers like leukemia, or issues with platelets, liver function, or even bone marrow. Mary went in for a cleaning. The hygienist paused and said, "Your gums are bleeding a lot more than usual today." Mary shrugged. "Maybe I've been brushing too hard." But the hygienist said something that stayed with her. "Bleeding gums can be a sign of something deeper, you know." Mary smiled politely, but she didn't forget. A week later, she got a nosebleed while watching TV. It wasn't dramatic, just persistent. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. She finally stopped it with a cold compress and pressure. But she'd never had nosebleeds before, and something about it felt off. She called her doctor, described the bruises, the bleeding, the fatigue. He ran a complete blood count, CBC, and that's when they found it. Her platelet levels were low. Not dangerously low, but lower than they should have been. Enough to monitor, enough to raise concern, and enough to act early. Further tests ruled out leukemia, but they did find myelodysplastic syndrome, a slow-moving bone marrow disorder that can lead to blood cancer if left untreated. Most people don't catch it this early, but Mary did, because she paid attention to a bruise, a small, painless bruise. That saved her life. Mary used to say, "If it doesn't hurt, it's probably nothing." But not anymore. Now, she tells everyone, pain isn't the only danger. Some dangers are silent. They show up in color, not sound. See a doctor if you bruise easily or often with no clear cause. Bruises take longer than 2 weeks to heal. You have recurring nosebleeds. Your gums bleed frequently. You see blood in urine or stool. Your skin shows petechiae, tiny red or purple dots under the skin. These can all be signs of something deeper than a bump. Every morning, Mary does a quick body check. Arms, legs, hands. She even has a small mirror for her back. Not because she's vain, not because she's paranoid, but because she's wise. Your body leaves breadcrumbs, she says. All you have to do is follow them. Mary now believes, if you see something, say something, even to yourself. A bruise may not cry out loud, but it may be calling for help. And blood? Blood should only show up where it's invited. So, take it seriously. Watch your skin, trust your gut, because the smallest stain might be your body's biggest truth. In Part 9, we return to Mary 1 year later to reflect on how trusting her instincts changed her life and how you can build the same early warning system in your own home. 1 year after her journey began, Mary stood in front of the bathroom mirror. She turned her chin, lifted her arms, checked a freckle she'd been watching for months. Nothing had changed, and that was a good thing, because now Mary wasn't just older. She was smarter. She had built something every aging person needs, an early warning system. Narrator: the biggest danger in aging isn't cancer, it's familiarity. You get used to things. A cough here, a cramp there. Feeling tired after dinner, losing a bit of appetite, skipping the mirror altogether, and slowly you stop noticing. Mary realized this early on and decided to fight back, not with fear, but with awareness. Mary started keeping a little notepad next to the calendar. Anytime something odd happened, she wrote it down. Tuesday. Woke up unusually tired. Friday, bruise on thigh, no bump. Next Thursday, still coughing in the morning. She didn't panic. She didn't Google. She observed, and when things didn't go away after 2 weeks, she brought the list to her doctor. It made the conversations easier, and it helped her doctor see patterns she couldn't. On the first of every month, Mary had a new ritual. Check her skin in the mirror, step on the scale, look for swelling in ankles, gently press around her stomach, stretch her joints. Note anything new, tender, or strange. She called it the Mary Method. It took 5 minutes, but it gave her peace for 30 days. Mary picked one friend, Evelyn. She said, "If I start sounding weird, walking funny, or looking off, tell me. Even if I get mad," Evelyn agreed, and Mary did the same for her. Because sometimes the people around you notice what you don't. The voice that changed, the slump in your shoulders, the bathroom visits you won't mention. Mary made herself a rule. If something bothers me for more than 2 weeks and it's not improving, I call. That's it. No second guessing. No waiting for it to get worse. No toughing it out. Because early detection isn't about being brave. It's about being smart. Mary didn't track her steps or her calories. She tracked energy levels, sleep quality, appetite, bathroom habits, new pains or sensations, emotional mood, especially if it lingered. She wasn't obsessive. She was informed. When her granddaughter visited, Mary sat her down and said, "Your phone reminds you to drink water, stretch, sleep, but your body has its own alerts too. Learn them now. Don't wait till you're 70. And she showed her how to check for moles, how to listen to breath, how to question changes. It wasn't about fear. It was about respecting the body. Mary knew the truth. Most people don't miss the signs because they're blind. They miss them because they don't want to know. They fear the answer. They hate hospitals. They've seen too many others go through it, but she also knew fear never saved anyone. Only attention does. Mary didn't catch cancer, but she caught everything else early. A liver condition, a vocal cord growth, a blood disorder, a vitamin deficiency, all treatable, all survivable because she watched and she listened. And that gave her something most people don't get at her age: time. Mary wants you to know this. You don't need a medical degree. You need a mirror, a calendar, and curiosity. You need to care enough to check. Your body is not a mystery. It's a messenger, and it's always talking. So listen early, ask early, act early, because early doesn't just mean better odds. Sometimes it means you get to stay you longer. In our final episode, Part 10, we return to the beginning, a full circle reflection on why older adults matter, why their stories deserve to be heard, and how taking care of your body is not selfish. It's a final act of love. Mary was never afraid of aging. Wrinkles were just life's handwriting. Gray hair? That was wisdom ink. But what she had feared was losing herself along the way, not knowing when something inside was going wrong, not hearing her own body. whisper for help. Now, at 73, she knows better because she listened, and it saved her. Over the course of 2 years, Mary experienced a lingering cough, a mysterious bruise, a freckle that changed shape, a pain in her side, a shift in her bathroom habits, unusual bleeding, subtle fatigue. None of them screamed, but together they told a story, not one of panic, not one of doom, a story of early warnings, a story of a body doing its best to protect her, if she'd just be willing to listen. Mary wasn't alone in her silence. She saw it everywhere. Friends too proud to ask, neighbors too scared to be diagnosed, family too busy to notice. But cancer doesn't care how strong you pretend to be. It moves quietly, slowly. And the only weapon you have is attention. Mary used to think self-care was selfish. Now she knows it's the opposite. Listening to your body keeps you alive for the people who love you. It sets an example for your children and grandchildren. It honors the gift of time you've been given. I take care of myself now, she says, so that others don't have to take care of me too soon. Mary wants everyone to know the body rarely screams first. It whispers, a mole that looks off, a cough that lingers, an ache that shouldn't be there, a sudden weight drop, a bathroom pattern that changes, a strange fatigue, all gentle warnings, and when heard early, they can be the start of healing, not mourning. Her doctor once said, "You don't have to know what's wrong. You just have to know what's different." Mary held on to that. She didn't try to diagnose herself. She didn't jump to conclusions. She simply watched, noted, spoke up, and that simple habit changed everything. Mary wrote a letter to her granddaughter tucked into a small envelope in her drawer. It said, "If I'm not here one day, don't remember me for my recipes or my rocking chair. Remember me for the way I listened to my body, to others, and to life. And I hope you'll do the same." Mary's parting gift is a simple list, one she hopes everyone over 60 prints out and keeps. Have you had a colonoscopy in the last 10 years? Do you check your skin monthly for changes? Are you tracking unusual pain, fatigue, or weight loss? Have you discussed any lingering cough or hoarseness with your doctor? Do you notice any bleeding from places it shouldn't come from? Have your bathroom habits changed recently? Are you noticing unusual bruising or slow healing? If any answer gives you pause, it's time to speak up. Mary still lives alone, still walks her little garden, still laughs with Evelyn, still sings softly in the kitchen. But there's a new quiet in her life. Not the quiet of worry, the quiet of knowing she did what she could, when she could. And that's the kind of peace only awareness can buy. Mary wants to say one last thing. You are not helpless. You are not just getting old. You are not meant to suffer silently. Your body is still yours, still wise, still worth listening to. Don't wait until something screams. Catch it when it whispers. So here's what Mary leaves with you: a mirror, a notebook, a willingness to ask. Because the earlier you look, the longer you'll see the sunrise, and the better chance you'll have to watch it rise with your own 2 eyes. This was Mary's story, but it could be yours. May you live long, live strong, and live listening.